It's been called America's other epidemic. We ask senior contributor Ted Koppel to take a closer look at the gun violence that seems so much a part of this summer of 2021.
A sweltering August night in the Brooklyn neighborhood of Baltimore. A young black man has been shot and killed. The murder gets barely a mention in the news. The fact is, as the city's police commissioner Michael Harrison knows all too well, something like this happens almost daily.
I'm sure you can recite the numbers in your sleep. Number of homicides.
Well, right now we're at 202, and we're even at 202 for the same time last year.
Our interview was in the morning. That night's homicide would be the 203rd.
This is a predominantly black city, 60-some-odd%.
That's about right.
And yet the number of murders, I believe, is up around 93% black in this city, the number of murder victims.
I think that percentage is close to accurate. Yeah.
The racial disparity is staggering. According to the Centers for Disease Control, black men are 14 times more likely to be killed by a firearm than white men. That's nationwide.
Explain that to me.
While there may be many who are affiliated with gangs, many of the murders are retaliations from previous bad acts, and many of them are just individual arguments that turn violent, where young men are using guns to settle their disputes because they don't know how to solve their conflicts any other way.
There is almost a contagion phenomenon that one shooting will lead to another, it leads to another.
Daniel Webster, director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Prevention and Policy, knows that gun violence in Baltimore has deep roots.
If you would go and talk to the young people, 15, 16-year-olds who might be shooting, pretty good guess that no one is really taking care of them. So to make money in this underground economy, either through robbery, through drugs, you typically have to have a gun.
When you say no one they can rely on, very often the father figure is in prison.
Or dead or gone, but that may be also true of the mother.
Kids don't have an understanding.
Meet Corey Winfield.
The worst thing that happened to us as street people is when we lost our fathers.
He's a site director for an organization called Catholic Charities Safe Streets.
That man right there in the middle, that's me.
His credibility depends in large part on what he did when he was young.
Let's take my story. Right? I didn't raise my oldest daughter.
Corey was in prison, convicted of murder.
When I came home and my daughter looked at me like I was a stranger, that was profound to me. So when I tell them young men, come get these Pampers we got at the office, and make sure you raise your child.
So one of the tools in your armory is Pampers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
For about 14 years now, Corey has been what's called a violence interrupter, which can be as dangerous as it sounds or as mundane as organizing community movie nights.
How much time do you do?
I did 21 years. Right now I'm in my 50s. When I got locked up, I was 17. When I came home, I was 38. So one thing I can tell you is what's going to happen when you point that gun and when you point that trigger.
Police Commissioner Harrison knows he's battling a culture of gun violence, and it's a national problem.
There are no gun stores in Baltimore, so they're coming from outside of the city. About 50% are coming from outside of the state. And then, Ted, there's the culture of carrying guns. Same number who are arrested for illegally carrying guns is the same demographic of people who become the victims of shootings and perpetrators of shootings.
Too often, those left behind to pull the pieces of broken families back together are the women, like Rashida Murray, a single mother of 5. Her youngest son, Gerard, is 9. His father was murdered.
He had an altercation with someone, and they went and got a gun and came back and killed him.
And 2 of your boys were killed.
The twins.
Not at the same time.
No, they were 7 years apart.
In 2012, one of the twins, Roderick Burton, went out to buy some Advil for a toothache.
He went to the store with his friends and he never came back. So I heard these shots, boom, 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 boom. And the first thing I can think is, where's Roderick? Where's my baby at? He was 18. And I go outside and it was him.
And then your second son, the second twin.
My second twin, Romar Burton, he was murdered September 5th, 2019.
How did you find out?
I found that out 10:30 that night when the detectives knocked on my door as I was getting into bed. And they had a picture, and I'm thinking, okay, they coming to tell me that he might have did something to somebody or they was looking for him. Never to tell me that my son was a victim of a homicide. My second one, a twin, my second child.
Romar was 26. He left behind a daughter who'll soon turn 4.
It's almost beyond belief for one woman to have gone through what you've gone through.
Something gotta change. We can't keep on burning our sons. We can't keep on burning our daughters. These little kids that's going through all this trauma and all this tragedy and how they feel about growing up without their parents. My son asked me, is he gonna ever get another father? That's hard.
So young men that you see in our orange shirts, they from here.
In Baltimore, as in so many other cities, gun violence is an epidemic. Corey Winfield and his young Safe Streets recruits were once carriers of the disease. Now, with additional support of the city,
How you doing?
they're trying to control the spread.
They was once a part of the problem. They decided to change their life and be a part of the solution.
Former gang members?
Not everybody. Typically in our neighborhood, that's more of drugs and robberies. The cycle of violence, it begins when you're young, and it just goes on perpetual. It never stops. So trauma in our neighborhood, like helicopters, sirens.
Let me just ask you, police chopper?
Yes. Yes. Don't forget, this is a violent area. So just because it's quiet now doesn't mean that it will always stay like that. At any time, day or night, this can erupt.
And it did, that night. The young man I told you about at the beginning of this story, nameless in the news, but not to Corey. He and I talked again the next day.
Bad night, huh?
Yeah, very bad night.
Tell me.
Young man that I was working closely with, trying to get him off the street, was ambushed and murdered last night. So it was days like this when it hurts you the most.
Do you know why he was ambushed?
I don't know, but right now we are working on stopping the retaliation. It's a very volatile situation.
Who's going to retaliate?
Well, that's the cycle of violence. My brother's life or my friend's life, I'm not gonna let this go. It's the same thing over and over and over again. You have to forgive somebody in order for somebody to live. And then they come back and say, well, how you know? I say, because I have found forgiveness for the man who killed my little brother.
Your little brother who was murdered?
Yes, he was.
And you knew who did it?
Yes, I did. I found out who did it the very next day. So I tracked him down. So the night when I was going to kill him, the police pulls up right there. So I left, and when I got home, my mother was sitting on the sofa. She grabbed me by my elbows, pulled me close, and she said, please stop. I can't lose another baby.
Corey's little brother, Jawan Winfield, was 21.
Let me ask you a very profound question. Well, the question's not profound, but the answer will be. Why is this still happening?
I know it's a saying that hurt people, but where I come from, hurt people kill people. A simple step on your shoe, you don't know the outcome of it. And there's too many young people, uneducated young people with guns. You're looking at hurt, and you're looking at anger, and you're looking at a race of people, young people, with no vision. I have vision, that's what keep me working. My vision is that one day we're gonna have no murders for a whole year. Not just Baltimore. I'm talking about gun violence now. Not just Baltimore, but the United States, my country. I vision that. I vision that.